In the summer of 2025, I had the real privilege of going on sabbatical, mainly to England, but a bit of time in Ireland as well. Again, a chance to draw back and rest, but also a chance for me to study and to learn. Here are some of my objectives and aims, 3 major ones and 4 minor ones. And again, the first thing I did was actually do some long distance walking, some of the pilgrim footpaths, mainly in England. I had a Garmin watch to measure the distances I did, and also an Ordnance Survey app to help me not to get lost. And again, these are the 6 walks I did, 4 over a number of days and 2 just one-day walks. And altogether, this was quite a major walk of 257 miles. And again, the first walk was the St. Kevin's Way, Hollywood to Glendalough, named after St. Kevin, who set up a monastic community at Glendalough, having walked there over the Wicklow Mountains. We began at Hollywood Church, and again it was great to do this with one of my old university friends, Dave, from Cardiff. And again we had beautiful weather, again walking up over the Wicklow Mountains, seeing some stunning scenery together. And again, really just enjoying the sunshine and the beautiful views and each other's company. Finally, we walked down the mountain and saw the monastic city, which is still beautifully preserved in Glendalough. Walking, though, can be dangerous. And just for fun, I took a number of photographs of some of the signs I saw on the way. And again, some of these things had to be negotiated, others I was just warned. I did have to go through this field, which said Bullen Field. Luckily, he wasn't. And again, I didn't, there's a story about guard dogs coming up, but a couple of funny ones just to finish with now. I'm not sure quite how dangerous these animals would be. My second walk was the St. Hilda's Way from Hartlepool to Whitby, largely along the coast, which was beautiful. Named after St. Hilda, who established monasteries in both Hartlepool and then later in Whitby. And again, this was a walk of contrasts, adventures, and also a disaster to finish. I began in Hartlepool. This was my Airbnb, and again, St. Hilda's Church was the starting point. And again, the first day was walking through the industry of Teesside. Lots of quite ugly sights, fascinating though, but also beautiful sights as we hit the coast and walked down through a lovely nature reserve. I should have crossed this transporter bridge, but it was closed, so I had to catch a bus into Middlesbrough. And I began the second day from Middlesbrough, very near to the Riverside Stadium where Middlesbrough play. And again, we walked mainly through industry, along railway lines in that first day. And again, I had to negotiate guard dogs. I had to squeeze past them to stay on the path. A footpath was closed due to a falling bridge, and I decided that I wanted to try to risk it. And as a result, had to wade over a flooded path up to my ankles in my boots, and that had consequences for later. My final day should have been 15 miles, but disaster struck in that in trying to climb over a barbed wire fence, I slipped and ripped open my finger. I had to walk 6 miles over the hills before catching a bus to Whitby Hospital, where amazingly I was seen in 3 minutes, and then had the chance to enjoy Whitby itself and the beautiful St. Hilda's Abbey there on the hill. The next part of my sabbatical was a silent 8-day Jesuit retreat at St. Bino's in North Wales. And again, I had to put aside all my crutches just to learn to be silent. It was just me and God. We weren't allowed to speak for 8 days, and I spent much time praying and also walking and running and just seeking to rediscover that intimacy with God. And again, it was quite hard at the end to come out of that. One thing I did do on that retreat was to visit the healing shrine at Holywell, where many miracles have taken place, including lame people walking who discarded their walking sticks. And again, I had the lovely privilege of swimming and praying in the healing spring here, and it was absolutely freezing. So back to walking, and again you can see how big my rucksack was, which again slowed me down often. And my next walk was actually the Whitting Way from Bristol to Glastonbury. And again, you can see that on the map. We went over the Mendip Hills. And again, Richard Whitting was the last abbot of Glastonbury, who died in 1539, having been hung, drawn and quartered on Glastonbury Tor. And lovely to do this walk with my brother Jeremy, again, who I hadn't spent time with properly for years. The second day, we ended up in Wells, a beautiful little town with Wells Cathedral, very impressive. And they were actually filming Masters of the Universe film there, so when we got there. And again, we finished in Glastonbury, known, of course, mainly for the Pop Festival. There's much more to it. Glastonbury Tor, again, a place which attracts people because the ley lines in the country cross there. And again, this was where Richard Whitting was beheaded. And again, Glastonbury itself, again, attracts many people. I again looked around the Glastonbury Abbey, which again was an amazing place. And supposedly the tomb of King Arthur is in that place. But again, it attracts as a town many sort of hippies, New Age, and also occult interested people. And again, there was quite an oppressive place there with all sorts of shops like these we saw. And then the fourth walk I did was the Saxon King's Way. And again, this is named after two Saxon kings, King Edred, who died in Frome, and King Edgar, who was coronated in Bath Abbey. Again, lovely to do this with my old village friend Tom, who again I've known for over 50 years. And again, we saw many little village churches on this route, including this lovely one on an island at Orchard Lee. We walked through Midford Tunnel, which was 1.5 miles long, and as a child I walked through that without any lights. A very hot day, as Wilbur the dog discovered. We managed it much better than he did. And again, the final view coming down to the beautiful city of Bath from the park at the top of the hill, and finishing at Bath Abbey, which is our selfie here together. And then I also, as a third part of my sabbatical, studied the healing ministry, and I stayed in some lovely places, including the Sanctuary in Glendalough, Sheldon, which is a place in Devon, mainly working with clergy, and again, lovely to be joined by Lynn, my wife, on this for a 3-day retreat there. Other places were Holyrood House, which I visited in Thirsk in Yorkshire. And then also Harn Hill in the Cotswolds, again, which is a residential centre offering courses and ministry to people. I visited places like the Living Well in Canterbury that have regular weekly healing services. And then other healing organisations like the Guild of Health and St Raphael, which works with healthy churches. I myself am a member of Acorn, so met up with our new director. And again, visited churches with a healing ministry. Methodist Central Hall in opposite Westminster Abbey, again, a tremendous place. The Living Well in Leamington, again, with healing appointments taking place. And again, the healing rooms, visiting 2 of them in Leighton in London and Carryduff in Northern Ireland. And then my big walk, the Canterbury Way, to Canterbury Cathedral from Southwark Cathedral. And again, the pilgrimage there began after Thomas Becket was murdered in 1170 in Canterbury Cathedral. Of course, Geoffrey Chaucer wrote Canterbury Tales, which I read just before I began this walk, setting off from Brockley in London, where I stayed with my cousin initially, and travelling then to Southwark Cathedral, where I picked up my Pilgrim Way passport and was prayed with by one of the canons there. The first day was walking mainly down the Old Kent Road and through much of the urban areas of London. We saw this beautiful mosaic, a homage to the Canterbury Way on the Old Kent Road there. And again, lovely to do this walk with my friend Kevin. Here we are by Greenwich Park, where I ran the London Marathon. Day 2, we walked to Dartford, again fairly urban, although there were some beautiful parks on the way. I hit the Thames River on this walk again, and again walked through the salt marshes, eventually ended up in Dartford. And then on to Kensing, much more rural now, beautiful lavender fields at Offord, before staying with a lovely woman Sonia, down there in Kensing. And then to Snodland, and again a beautiful country walk. Again, the weather up till now had been beautiful, but in Rochester it suddenly started raining. I also messed up my accommodation. I had to find somewhere at the last minute, but had the chance again to look round the castle there and go to evensong in the cathedral. I then walked to Bearstead, again beautiful rivers, countryside on the way. It was a wet day. I also met this monk on his way to Canterbury on the footpath before ending up with my friend Kingsley in Bearstead and enjoying an evening with them. I was worried about the next walk to Wye. It was 18 miles and I'm beginning to get horrible blisters at this point. These are my feet. Again, there's 8 blisters on those 2 feet, and I was also losing a toenail. So every step was very painful at this point. But again, lots of fruit on the way. I often had blackberries for my breakfast. And again, the weather on this really threatened to break. Some tremendous dark clouds for about 2 hours, and I kept thinking I'd have to run for shelter. But amazingly, the rain held off despite some really threatening clouds, as you can see in these photographs. And again, agony all the way almost with my blisters as I approached Wye. But lovely to be joined on my last day by one of my very good village friends again, Percy, and he joined me in that last 14 miles into Canterbury. And again, lots of time walking, talking, that sense of achievement almost, that I was almost there after 90 miles. We hit the rain, again very wet, but finally saw Canterbury Cathedral. And again, finished there whilst there was a graduation taking place. I was met there by a pilgrim officer who prayed for us and gave me my final certificate to say that I'd completed that walk. And then, of course, finishing off with choral evensong, and again, what an experience that was. And from there, we went to have our tea in Wetherspoons before my friend Percy caught the train back home. And then returned to Brockley, where I had a week in London, just spending time with my friends. We saw the various sites, including a Thames River trip and a tour of the Houses of Parliament, before ending up at the Oval, where we saw a fantastic day of Test cricket, along with some friends, England against India. And then my final walk, the St. Peter's Way, named after the church at the end, St. Peter's Chapel. Again, very well signposted all the way, totally flat, and much of it walking through cornfields. Again, a very dry ground. It hadn't rained for some time. And again, the harvest was being gathered. Beautiful fruit and combine harvesters all the way in these fields. And again, these are a couple of chairs I saw on the way, a tree over the path I had to negotiate, but finally ending up again, at the end of each day, very sweaty due to my rucksack, but we finally ended up on this sea wall in Bradwell-on-Sea, walking along the coast, and again eventually ended up at St. Peter's Chapel. And this is the oldest brick church still in England, formed by St. Chad in the 7th century. And again, I spent my final night with a Christian community which has sprung up around that chapel. So a wonderful experience. And again, my sabbatical was a time of silence and making space and really rediscovering that intimacy with God. It was a time when I loved the nature and just being in God's creation, spent so much time talking with him and just marvelling at the beauty of creation. And of course, I met so many inspiring people, saw so many great projects on the way. So a tremendous 4 months altogether, and finishing with some lovely holiday with Lynn as well.